La ONU trazó en el 2015 los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible para el 2030, pero nadie contó con que una pandemia se iba a cruzar en el camino. En un contexto global marcado por 4 crisis simultáneas, sanitaria, económica, social, climática, habría que añadir la bélica, es necesario avanzar hacia una reconstrucción socialmente responsable y además carbono neutral. Ahora, ¿cómo abogar por la sostenibilidad cuando hay nubarrones de una recesión global? ¿Qué lecciones se obtienen de la experiencia pandémica? ¿Qué oportunidades tienen las empresas también para justamente avanzar los ODS? El bestseller, asesor de la ONU en desarrollo sostenible, Jeffrey Sachs, nos va a ayudar justamente a dilucidarlo y ya lo tenemos contactado. Mr. Jeffrey Sachs, hello, good morning to you from Chile.
Hola,
it's wonderful to be with you. And Professor, you have a very eager audience here to listen to your presentation. Next round, we'd love to share with you some good Chilean wines. We'd like to have you physically here.
Nos gustaría compartir con ustedes o con usted un
It's
poco
all
de vino
yours.
chileno cuando pueda estar aquí presencialmente. Acepto la invitación a ir a tomar vino chileno en la próxima visita. De hecho, les hablo desde Riad, la Arabia Saudita, hoy día, y esto tuvo una relación, una reunión relacionada a la que están hablando ustedes sobre la sustentabilidad global. Entonces, es el Consejo de Viaje y de Turismo y de Liderazgo de la industria global turística que mueve millones, billones de personas alrededor del mundo pensando sobre su sustentabilidad y creo que ese es el tema principal de ahí, ¿cierto? Debería ser el asunto principal en todo el mundo. Ya decidimos en 2020 como mundo que nosotros necesitamos hacer 2 cosas muy importantes. La primera, nos pusimos de acuerdo en septiembre de 2015, es que necesitamos adoptar el camino de desarrollo sustentable, un camino de desarrollo económico que también sea socialmente inclusive y también sustentable en relación al medio ambiente. Entonces, el progreso económico, social y medioambiental para todas partes del mundo, y después de 2 meses después de eso, los mismos gobiernos adoptaron el Acuerdo de París para poder tratar de mover el mundo hacia una trayectoria de seguridad climática. Y eso significaba 3 dimensiones. Una, lógico, era intentar terminar con este cambio climático hecho por el ser humano, así terminando las emisiones de los gases de efecto invernadero que están calentando el planeta. Y el segundo es adaptar y hacer que nuestra sociedad sea más resiliente al cambio climático que va a pasar durante décadas. Aunque paremos ahora todas las emisiones, vamos a tener un clima que se va a calentar durante el siglo XX, porque es un proceso. El mundo se tiene que recuperar de todo el daño que ya hemos hecho. Y la tercera parte del cambio climático, de la agenda de cambio climático, es poder reaccionar a los desastres que están ocurriendo infelizmente en todas las partes del mundo. Todos los lugares del mundo están con sequía, inundaciones. Lógico, el nivel del mar está aumentando para todas las poblaciones que están en la área de la costa. Vientos, tormentas, huracanes, lo que sea. Tenemos aquí un problema en nuestras manos que solamente se va a intensificar en los próximos años. Entonces, 2 agendas se adoptaron en 2015. El desarrollo sustentable, el marco de desarrollo sustentable con 17 objetivos adoptados y también el Acuerdo de París. Estamos luchando. Nosotros tenemos objetivos válidos, pero esto es un trabajo bien difícil de reorientar cómo nuestros sistemas políticos funcionan nuestros sistemas económicos, nuestras interacciones geopolíticas, nuestros sistemas tecnológicos. La idea entera de adoptar esta agenda era para poder cambiar la dirección en la que estábamos, no solamente hacer más de lo mismo o mejor de lo mismo, pero necesitábamos hacer las cosas diferentes. Y es difícil hacer las cosas diferentes. Estábamos haciendo las cosas así antes por razones, tal vez eran de beneficio o de política. Tal vez nuestra geopolítica estaba orientada así. Ahora nosotros estamos diciendo, no, ¿sabes qué? No está funcionando, necesitamos un nuevo camino. Y creo que está bien decir, y puedo decir después de pasar las últimas 3 semanas, tanto en la COP27, que fue la conferencia número 27 a nivel mundial sobre el clima. O sea, hace mucho tiempo que estamos en esto, desde la primera conferencia en Berlín de la COP en 1995 y el G20, que fue en Bali, Indonesia, y después fue en Egipto, y el G20 fue en Bali. Yo creo que vale la pena decir que nosotros estamos luchando. Nosotros todavía pensamos que esta es la agenda correcta, pero no tenemos los resultados que necesitábamos. Yo sé que tu pregunta era decir qué es lo que debería Chile de hacer o los negocios hacer, cómo podemos ir al camino correcto. Y para responder esto, me gustaría pasar un par de momentos en el medio ambiente global y hablar sobre el medio ambiente local y chileno. En el medio ambiente global, el mayor problema, en mi opinión, es que nosotros estamos agarrados en las políticas y se trata solamente de perder o ganar, quién está arriba, quién está ganando a quién y quién tiene más poder. Y esta es la competencia entre Estados Unidos, Rusia, Estados Unidos, China. No hace sentido, en mi opinión, causa muchísimo daño. Es una mentalidad del pasado, del siglo XX, pero los Estados Unidos se enfoca tanto en ser más poderoso que China o destruir Rusia, que no se enfoca en resolver problemas ni siquiera dentro de los Estados Unidos, o terminar con la guerra en Ucrania, o disminuir la temperatura con China. Estamos atrapados por la política que se trata del poder de los Estados Unidos, sino de las necesidades de los Estados Unidos o las necesidades del mundo. No voy a seguir en relación a eso. Yo creo que nosotros deberíamos terminar la guerra en la Ucrania al negociar entre los Estados Unidos y Rusia, porque es una guerra entre los Estados Unidos y Rusia, ni siquiera es una guerra entre Rusia y Ucrania. Esto es una guerra entre Rusia y los Estados Unidos. Es para saber si NATO va a crecer a Ucrania, y la respuesta debería ser sí o no. Fue una idea estúpida de los Estados Unidos y que nosotros seguimos intentando que sea así y colocamos Ucrania en la mitad de una guerra. Segundo, necesitamos enfocarnos con China y tenemos una agenda común y de muchos de los asuntos. Y me gustaría enfocar en Chile. La agenda sustentable de desarrollo es hacer que sea una sociedad más igual y equitativa y sustentable. Y para mi mente, para Chile, esto involucra algunos elementos clave. El primero es que Chile es un país increíble con mucho éxito. Sin embargo, necesita una actualización del sistema de educación y del sistema de ciencia y tecnología. para que sean mucho más inclusivos, mucho menos basados en la clase de lo que es ahora. Y yo diría que la mayor calidad del mundo, y eso es lo que es Chile, completamente capaz de llegar a eso. Entonces yo empezaría con la reforma de la educación, que ha sido un asunto muy importante por muchos años, pero yo creo que es más inversiones en la mayor calidad de educación para todos los niños del país y para los graduados de la universidad. Eso significa también más ciencia y tecnología a alto nivel. El segundo es que Chile sea una sociedad innovadora, aún más. Hablaste de los vinos de Chile y no vino de cualquier lado, de la nada. De hecho, es el resultado de inversiones sustentables. Si vuelves a los 60, los 70, los programas del gobierno para transformar a Chile en un poder mundial de viñas, de frutas, vegetales exportados a mercados globales, y eso requiere ciencia y una actualización tecnológica, y Chile necesita lo mismo en la economía industrial, en el sector de energía, en el
Professor? Yeah, no, I just wanted to also ask you, and mind you, I will ask in Spanish for the benefit of the audience, and then I will ask you in English regarding the climate crisis, because as you well know, this is one of the most vulnerable countries for the ongoing climate crisis. Para beneficio de la audiencia, le señalo al profesor que Chile es uno de los países a nivel mundial más vulnerables ante la crisis climática. Acabamos de tener la COP27, pero mi pregunta a Jeffrey Sachs es la siguiente. ¿Se puede hablar seriamente de una intención de reparar la crisis climática cuando todavía tenemos 11 millones de dólares por minuto de subsidio a los hidrocarburos en una relación de 5-1 con las renovables? Professor, my point being basically, did you get it? Okay.
You know, this was really not feasible with Bolsonaro as president because you had the biggest country in South America doing terrible things, frankly, destroying the Amazon and really horrible policies. But President Lula is absolutely committed to a regional solution on the energy transformation. And with your president and with the President Petro in Colombia, with the Lula, with President Fernandez in Argentina, there's really a chance for a highly effective regional grid. And by the way, I can add Paraguay, which has hydropower, and on and on. And this is extremely important to have this regional cooperation. Now, you know, Chile will be an exporter of green energy, and it will also attract a lot of industry because it will be a completely green power economy. And again, your sunshine in the Atacama is literally the best in the world. And I think a lot of investors understand this. So with the rest of the world, we're facing, of course, in the U.S., the terrible hydrocarbon lobby. This is true wherever there are fossil fuels. But I'm in Saudi Arabia today, which is the hydrocarbon center of the world. They are making massive investments in hydrogen and in photovoltaics, because they know actually that even as the world's major hydrocarbon exporter, they can't have a future based on that. So my view is, of course, you're right to point out the weaknesses, but the fact of the matter is the first movers in this case are really going to benefit. And Chile can move fast. It already is moving. It should be really bold in this, and it should connect with all of South America, will do a huge benefit for the whole South American economy.
I would ask you the question that I just posed to the Minister of Finance. Voy a hacerle la misma pregunta que le hice al ministro de Hacienda que recién tuvimos, y es, frente a una semana de 40 horas laborales, una reforma de pensiones, una reforma tributaria, una coyuntura internacional difícil y una constitución que todavía es un proceso inconcluso aquí en Chile, ¿usted, Jeffrey Sachs, si fuera inversionista, invertiría en Chile? Did you get that one?
Of course I'd invest in Chile, because an investor shouldn't, a serious investor doesn't base investments on 1 or 2 years. An investor base investments on, first of all, most importantly, the quality of the population, workforce, the education levels, the strength of the society. And in Chile, this is very, very strong. And the economic record is very strong through many decades. Of course, Chile is facing really a social crisis because Chile has a very high level of inequality, and that's what Chile is experiencing right now in its politics. But the strength of the society is really very, very high, and the capacity in the country is very high. The infrastructure is good and will be much better, and especially with the commitment to, which Chile has, this commitment to green transformation and a regional transformation, investors will come. But I would also add another element. Which investors? Well, first, there should be investors across South America itself. So South America really should have a much more integrated economic strategy. Mercosur should be a South American strategy. And also the United States tried to divide South America between the anti-Chavistas and the pro-Chavistas, and to even overthrow Maduro. And it's awful to create these kinds of divisions within the region. So this is the first point. Chile has deep strengths. It can even build on those strengths through commitments in science, technology, research centers, research universities, more investments in the skilled workforce, a green infrastructure, regional connectivity. And then I would add one more point. All of South America should have good foreign relations with China, with the United States, and with Europe. In other words, basically a favorable foreign policy with all players. And of course, I don't think it could happen anymore, but South America should never be drawn into the U.S. game of us versus them, that you can't trade with China, they're our enemy or they're our opponent, because China's a huge trading partner for Chile and for South America, and I think potentially a huge investor as well. And so foreign policy also will make a difference here. By the way, the more regionally united South America is, the more investment is going to come into Chile. So this is also just smart regional policy. But truly, I wouldn't worry about the short term in the sense of deterring investment. I would emphasize Chile's very clear strengths, which are really historically proven, and emphasize those points.
Profesor, no quiero olvidar las principales víctimas de la guerra en Ucrania, que son los propios ucranianos. Pero dicho eso, quiero hacerle la siguiente pregunta. ¿Cómo ve usted el escenario a mediano plazo? ¿Habrá posibilidades de paz? Se lo pregunto porque aquí en Chile hemos sufrido justamente el alza en el precio de los combustibles y la consecuente inflación.
You know, this war could have been avoided in 2021. As I mentioned, President Biden should have sat down with President Putin and said, okay, we hear you. We're not going to enlarge NATO. That would have avoided the war. Simple as that, by the way. Of course, there are other issues on the table, but that would have stopped the invasion. Then in March, that issue was on the table, and Zelensky was negotiating for peace. Then the Ukrainians walked away from the negotiating table. I know it, by the way, that it wasn't the Russians that left the negotiating table, it was the Ukrainians. I think it was a terrible mistake. My guess, it's only a guess, but my guess is that the United States encouraged them to walk away from the negotiating table, because Zelensky had agreed to neutrality as opposed to NATO membership. And the U.S. is intent on NATO expansion. This is the big mistake of the United States, because that is a red line for Russia. And it seems the U.S., at least some people in the U.S. politics, are content for this war to go on and on, rather than to negotiate a peaceful outcome. So I am of the view that we could actually have an end to this war immediately if the U.S. would actually negotiate directly with Russia. It's not a matter, by the way, of Ukraine negotiating with Russia, because this is mostly a proxy war between the U.S. and Russia over influence in Ukraine. And Russia is saying, that's our neighborhood. You keep your military alliance out of here. And I think Russia has a point about that. Now, the invasion is awful. The war is terrible. But when you have a terrible situation like this, you don't just blame the other side. You find an outcome to end the war. And I blame the United States in this by saying that the outcome is the defeat of Russia. Well, sorry, it's not going to happen that way. And while the U.S. may wish it, that's not how peace is going to come. Peace is going to come through negotiation, and it could come quickly. And what we really need is all countries of the world saying to Russia and the United States, you two sit down and work this out, because we understand that this is about your bilateral relations. And this war needs to end by the two big nuclear superpowers, each with 1,700 nuclear weapons, to sit down and negotiate an end to this fighting.
We have both. Tenemos litio, pero tenemos también hidrógeno verde. No somos los únicos, sin embargo. ¿Cómo pudiésemos tener una ventaja comparativa respecto a otros países?
Well, I think you'll have a strong advantage, first of all, from nature, because you've got a lot of wonderful sunshine. You've got good ports that can carry hydrogen and that can be part of a global supply chain. You have neighbors that need the hydrogen as well. You have pipelines in South America that should be repurposed from hydrocarbons to hydrogen pipelines. And so I think you have some real strengths. But what I would add is you have some great universities also. And I would use the universities as research laboratories for being at the cutting edge of these new technologies. Just this morning, as I was flying into Riyadh, I was reading an article that I didn't quite understand, in Science magazine of a new, even lower cost way to produce hydrogen. Don't make me repeat it. I didn't understand it, but an advanced chemist would understand it. But my point is, this is where I think Chile really can excel in the coming 20 years. Chile does not do enough research and development, and that is a tradition of underinvestment by the state in science and technology. I would think at this stage of Chile's development, a sophisticated society, sophisticated industry, OECD member, wanting to be in the absolute top ranks, I would put some metrics on research and development spending, on patents, on research articles, on scientists and engineers per thousand population, and I would aim for a transformation to create a deeper engineering cadre in the country and a deeper scientific cadre, and I would focus a lot of it on agriculture, sustainable land use, ecosystems, and energy systems. Because also Chile, not only can produce hydrogen, but can produce the industrial products to produce hydrogen as well. But that's going to be a pretty competitive area, and it's going to require startups coming out of the universities as a real objective.
Esta pregunta es un poco autorreferente, pero ¿sigue Chile siendo la joya de la corona en América Latina o ha perdido en la percepción internacional rango, estatus?
I think that the last 3 years have been shocking in Chile and surprising for the world. Because Chile seemed not only the success story, but really stable and kind of the rock of stability in the region. And that clearly was not the case, because Chile clearly had a lot of really seething inequality issues to face. And I think that is, basically what has happened. Chile, for a long, long time, had an excellent macroeconomic track record and growth record and low inflation and excellent budget management and so forth, all of which I completely applaud. But it had quite high inequality, which was gradually declining, but not at a satisfactory social rate. Now, my view is that the main way to address these social issues, in my opinion, is overwhelmingly through quality education for all, because I think human capital is the greatest equalizer and the most important factor in society. Of course, in addition to that, one needs income redistribution and compensatory help and so forth. But I think the divides in the quality of education, because Chile really had a two-tiered education system, was part of the problem, not part of the solution. But having said all of that, I think Chile's longer-term reputation is strong. We love Chilean wines. We see Chilean fruit on our plates every day. We know of Chile being a low inflation, macroeconomically well-managed society, and that counts for a lot and is not lost at all. Now, to my mind, Chile will benefit not by standing out within Latin America, but Chile will benefit from a much stronger Latin America, a much stronger regional base. So I don't think Chile's great strength is to be the first in a neighborhood of mess, but rather a very strong performer in a neighborhood that's moving forward together. And this has not been the case, unfortunately, to my surprise, for South America for the last 20 years, actually. It's been a difficult period. And there have been moments of good performance, but Argentina has been in crisis. Ecuador, Peru have been in social crises. Venezuela, of course, we know the situation. But I believe, I hope I'm not naive in this, I really believe that there is a chance to turn that corner right now, because actually there are a lot of like-minded leaders that want to cooperate with each other. I think I personally really disliked the American policy vis-a-vis Venezuela. Whatever one thinks of Hugo Chavez and Maduro, you don't try to kill the country, kill the economy, overthrow the government in my playbook. And so I think with Lula coming in, who I really do like very much, by the way, and with the leaders around the region, there's really a chance to do a lot better. And Chile will really thrive if the region is thriving. So I hope that there's some effort for that kind of regional cooperation, because I think it's not just goodwill, but also it's good economics.
Wonderful. And my final question, when are you coming over?
Well, I'm coming to Lula's inauguration on January 1, so we'll be in the neighborhood, and let's discuss.
Excelente, muchísimas gracias, profesor Jeffrey Sachs, un placer tenerlo con nosotros desde Riyadh, Arabia Saudita. Please hear the applause of the public. Por favor, escuche el aplauso del público. And we do hope to have you here in Chile. Always insightful. Thank you very much, Mr. Jeffrey Sachs.